What's up, kids, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of The MonkeyBoy Presents the DC Comics Superhero Collection by Eaglemoss, and today I'm happy to bring you the 5th issue in the Blackest Night, Brightest subseries collection, Carol Ferris, also known as Star Sapphire. And this is yet another former villain turned hero. She was one of Hal Jordan's greatest foes, the Green Lantern's greatest foes, for quite some time in the comic books. They had an interesting love-hate relationship. It was very well done. And until recently, she turned and is now a hero, fighting alongside Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. It's a pretty interesting story. For those of you who do know the character, chances are you have seen her on episodes of the animated Justice League cartoon show, both Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, where she was a villainess. She's also appeared again as a bad guy in the animated Justice League Doom movie, which is also very good. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. She's also been portrayed on the big screen by actress Blake Lively in the live-action Green Lantern movie, which was unfortunately not so great, and more recently, Carol Ferris has appeared as Star Sapphire in the new Green Lantern animated series, which unfortunately was just recently canceled, but you can check her out. She was pretty cool there, and she was more or less a hero from the start on that series. They sort of retconned her origins a little bit. But for those of you who do not know her and want to get to know her, well, that's why we have the magazine, which we'll look at first, and it'll tell you everything you need to know about Carol Ferris. It actually talks about the Star Sapphires a little bit first. You learn there's a whole spectrum of violet-colored warriors called the Star Sapphires, and then it talks about Carol. And then we'll look at the figure itself, covering the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's a nice figure, not totally flawless, but she is pretty cool for what she is, and I always like adding another female to the line. Please, sit back, relax. I hope you enjoy issue number 5 in the Blackest Night, Brightest subseries collection by Eaglemoss, Carol Ferris. First up, the character section. And this magazine goes into detail about the Star Sapphires before really touching upon Carol Ferris as a character. It explains that the Star Sapphires were founded by an alien race of females known as the Zamorans. The Zamorans were themselves once known as Malthusians. In fact, they were the female counterparts to the race of beings who evolved to become known as the Owens. When the Owens turned their back on all emotions except for logic and willpower in order to try and protect the galaxy, the female Malthusians left the planet as well. After wandering the galaxy for thousands of years, they were drawn to a planet known as Zamoran, where they discovered a rock glowing with the violet energy of love. Hoping to heal the war-torn universe with the power of love, they sent these Star Sapphire crystals across the galaxy. The crystals were designed to seek out the mate of any Green Lantern in an effort to join the two forces together. Next, we learn more about Carol Ferris. We learn that she and Hal Jordan first met when they were young children, and her father hired his father as a test pilot for their company, Ferris Air. Carol eventually inherited her father's business and hired Hal as her lead test pilot. The two very quickly became romantically involved. It was one afternoon while Carol was out flying one of her personal aircraft that she was abducted by aliens who turned out to be the Zamorans. The Zamorans disguised themselves so they would appear human to Carol, and then made her the Star Sapphire of Earth. knowing that she and Hal Jordan were romantically involved. Carol would eventually become the Star Sapphire again after an encounter with a wannabe superhero known as the Predator. It was eventually revealed the Predator was actually the entity of love in physical form, and that he was seeking out Carol Ferris because he knew she was once a Star Sapphire, and he could therefore combine with her, creating an even more powerful Star Sapphire. A few years later, yet another Star Sapphire gemstone had crash-landed on Earth and was drawn to Carol since she had once been a Star Sapphire a few times over. This newest Star Sapphire tracked down the Green Lantern only to discover that he no longer cared for Carol Ferris the way he once did, and instead was in love with his new Air Force co-pilot, a girl codenamed as Cowgirl. Finally, we learn that Carol Ferris willingly became a Star Sapphire again during the event known as the Blackest Night. When the Zamorans realize that they're faced with extinction in light of this zombie horde attacking the galaxy, they forge their gemstones into less powerful and more controllable power rings similar to the Green Lanterns. The first woman they choose to become the official Star Sapphire of this new corps of Violet Lanterns is Carol Ferris, who reluctantly agrees to lead these new Star Sapphires after she's shown a vision of Hal Jordan and the rest of the Green Lantern Corps being annihilated by the Black Lanterns. Next, we look at a few more stories from the Blackest Night event. First up, Rebels, Blackest Night. This story takes place in the far future, where we find even it is under attack from the Black Lanterns, and a superhero team known as the Rebels are the only ones who seem to stand in the way of this endless undead army. And as if battling an undead army of zombies wasn't enough, they also find themselves having to do battle against the alien being known as Starro the Conqueror. It's yet another creepy tale in the Blackest Night series. We also have the Suicide Squad and the Secret Six, Blackest Night. This story opens with the villainous mercenary group known as the Secret Six doing battle with the federally funded group known as the Suicide Squad, and as the two opposing teams are fighting one another, suddenly they're descended upon by an army of undead Black Lanterns. It's an action-packed installment in the Blackest Night story, and has a really crazy ending that is definitely worth checking out. And finally we have Doom Patrol, Blackest Night. And for those who don't know, the Doom Patrol was formed by Dr. Niles Calder in an effort to preemptively thwart threats against humanity. And this story finds the Dear Doctor coming up against members of the Doom Patrol who have been killed in battle and are now zombies in the Black Lantern Corps. It's another psychologically chilling story in the Blackest Night series. The iconography section features a nice big 2-page fold-out poster of the Star Sapphires detailing their homeworld of Zamaron, that their power on the emotional spectrum represents love. Their color, of course, is violet. It shows their logo in the background, features a few other members in the Star Sapphire Corps alongside Carol Ferris, and, my favorite part, features their oath. And lastly, the Friends and Foes section features yet more members of the Black Lantern Corps, and featuring evil-ended versions of Wonder Woman, Dr. Light, and Firestorm. Here we have Carol Ferris, also known as Star Sapphire, of the Star Sapphires, and I think for the most part this is a really nice figure. It's always great to have another female character in the series, especially one that can be considered a villainess, if you so choose. For the longest time she was one of Green Lantern's greatest villainesses. Only recently has she become a hero. I like the interpretation that's on display here. She's of course in her most modern outfit, since this is from the Blackest Night, Brightest Day collection. She's wearing the appropriate attire. And you can see there's really fantastic details. All the little cuts in the uniform where her skin is showing through are here. Even her belly button is really well detailed on this one. She, of course, has the Star Sapphire logo on her midsection there. And the paint is really nice. It's pretty clean for the most part. And the metallic violet paint that they used for her costume is awesome. It's got a great glossiness to it. You can see that metallic fleck is nice and even. It's almost exactly like the Blue Lantern St. Walker and, of course, Agent Orange Larfleeze. They had that same metallic fleck going on. It's not too heavy. It's really well done here. The pose is pretty nice. It's sort of iconic. I like the high collar. The hair is pulled off pretty nicely. I really like her boots, though, those thigh-high boots, and you can see both heels are detailed. Really nicely done. It's always nice to have another member from the Green Lantern series, another character from the Green Lantern series, I should say. And she's not flawless, of course. There are some things, some problems I have with her, but of course I'll talk about that and more in the next section in a moment. Carol Ferris stands atop the Star Sapphire logo, and the underside of the base features her name and serial number. And so you can compare, here she is next to one-time Star Sapphire member Wonder Woman, side by side with the love of her life, Hal Jordan, aka Green Lantern. A shot with both the Green Lantern and Sinestro of the Yellow Lantern or Sinestro Corps. And finally a group shot with the other representatives from the color spectrum that have been released so far. Carol Ferris is another really nice figure in this collection. It's always good to have another female in line, as well as another villain, if you want to consider her to be a villain. If not, it's just cool to have another member in the color spectrum, especially the Star Sapphires, who are, in my opinion, one of the coolest factions. We'll start, as always, with the good. I really like the pose, I like the sculpt a lot, and I really like the paint. It's very well done for the most part, and the metallic violet paint is especially nice. It's not very heavy in any one spot. It's really even. It's not splotchy or nasty. It's great. I like the boots. The stiletto heels are really cool. I like the fact that they are thigh-high and come to a point. Her flesh tone also is really, really nice. It looks like skin. It's a flat flesh tone. I like the belly button detail. I like the fact that you can see her skin poking through the design of the costume in certain areas, and again the Star Sapphire logo in white. All the way around the suit is pulled off perfectly as it should be. I like the gloved hands, the fact that the fingers on her left hand have been detailed. Even if they are together, they're at least detailed. And her right hand has that nice bend to it. Again, a nice detail in the sculpt. She's not just standing there. At least she's got something. She's lifting her ring up like most of the other lanterns, to be honest. And the ring does have some definition to it. It's a slightly different shade of violet, and it looks as though it's glowing, to be honest with you, even if it is a little splotch of paint on the finger. The high white collar is really, really cool. I like that it comes to a peak on her chest, and it pokes up off her shoulders and even goes through her hair. On the left side of her shoulder there, you can see it's peeking through the hair. And the hair, too, is really nicely done. It's a sort of glossy black. I like how it's flowing over her shoulders, down her back, and how there are bits of the costume poking through it, like on the back of her left shoulder there. You can see the violet color of the costume poking through. Finally, the head sculpt, I think, is very nice. She's an attractive looking figure. Her eyes are also violet, glowing with the energy of the ring, and the mask detail, or at the very least, I guess that headdress, is really, really nice. She has that white diamond in the center of her forehead. It has really nice peaks to that sort of crown she has as far as the mask goes, and I like how the mask sort of wraps around her eyes, like along her cheekbones. She also has earrings, which I think is a really nice detail. I don't think that's something we see very often. I know Wonder Woman did, but I can't remember any other figure in the line besides her having earrings, and I think Carol here is a very nice addition to the line, and a really nice sculpt, especially the face sculpt, though. On to the bad. Some minor paint bleeding here and there. The only complaints I really have with this figure have to do with physical imperfections on mine. First being the logo on her torso. It is hand-painted, which is awesome, but mine does have a little bit of a chip there, so you want to look at that before you purchase. Also, mine has a blemish on her chest. You can see it's as though the paint wasn't layered evenly, or it's chipped a little bit, and it's a slightly darker shade of flesh tone. Other than that, though, the figure, I think, is very nicely done. And finally, the Ugly. She's a really solid figure, to be honest with you. Nothing really bendable or breakable to speak of. Just want to look and make sure she has no paint imperfections before you purchase, if you have the ability to. Overall, I'm really pleased with this figure in the long run. She is not one of the most heavily detailed figures, or even maybe one of the most well-known figures, but she is a favorite of mine, and it's cool to have a Star Sapphire. I like the color spectrum, even if I don't necessarily like all the characters. However, I do really like this character a lot. It's neat having Hal Jordan's girlfriend, or love interest, or whatever you want to consider her, and it's also cool having another villain, if you want to consider her to be a villain. Also of note, if you are interested in getting some of the more rare figures, I suppose, she is the only Star Sapphire in this collection, the Blackest Night, Brightest Day collection, much like Larfleeze Agent Orange is the only orange lantern in the whole collection, and St. Walker is the only blue lantern. She is the only Star Sapphire, the only violet lantern, if you will, in this entire set. So that, I think, is another reason you might want to pick her up. She's not necessarily the most well-known, but I really do like her, and as you can see, the color spectrum does continue to grow, but I really like her a lot. I think she's very cool, and I hope you have enjoyed my review of Carol Ferris, Star Sapphire here. Please stay tuned for a quick teaser trailer of the next figure in the collection. We go back to the regular Eaglemoss series with this one, and it's another hero. If you consider Star Sapphire a hero, we have another hero on the way, a member of the Justice Society of America, and another hero who has sort of inherited his title and status, if you will. Please stay tuned for that. As always, I'm your host, the MonkeyBoy, aka Jediarco's Friends. Thanks for watching.